Like, nobody wanted to see me like that. Wasn't be like, oh great, share just right. No. It'd be bad for the brand.
You'd call our agent.
You
and
would
say,
have to
bury
release
it.
the statement.
I would have to come out whilst just in the
like a black story, but with like text over it.
Hi guys, you might have seen the footage of James.
As some of you may be aware, James,
if you're seeing this, come home. Everything's fine.
My fellow sirens.
Yeah.
Back.
Hello.
Thank God it's colder.
I'd never been more appreciative of a chill.
It got
today.
really, really hot. Yesterday was 32.
I said this to James. I was basically a human puddle yesterday. It's I can't explain it, James, but 32 degrees in the UK, basically sub-Saharan temperatures.
It might as well be 48.
Yeah.
And I know people laugh because they go, the British love to moan, but we are a nation of floors of carpets, bricks, insulation, double glazing.
No residential air conditioning.
It's truly a problem.
It is.
And then just like the fact that if you're out for a day somewhere, if you were to do the same thing in Spain, chances are you would encounter air conditioning at some point, which sort of cools everything down.
And a siesta.
Not in the UK. Not in the UK.
No,
it doesn't. But I just want to firstly say, I'm back from Glastonbury, which is, as always, just always delivers. It's fantastic. But an enormous thank you to everyone who came up and said hello. I cannot express it enough, and I know you feel exactly the same way. You might see numbers on a screen, but when someone comes up to you and just says, oh, they're a fan of the show, or even just a fan of our TikTok videos, but especially people who are fans of the show who say hello, and I realize it's a person who loves listening to us. It genuinely always is the nicest thing. I had people who were hoping they'd find me and then did. People who were like, oh, well, my girlfriend said, she didn't want to come and say hello. My girlfriend said I should come say hello, so I'm saying hello. Everyone just loved it. People really trying to tell me, like, no, like, I'm a fan. Like, I listen all the time.
That's great.
It's always the best. And obviously, whatever this version of like 1% of fame is, it's not real fame. Like there are people I saw at Glastonbury who are definitely really, really famous. So like walked past like a Paul Mescal a couple of times, Anya Taylor-Joy, Andrew Scott, who I saw exact same places last time, definitely having fun.
You were hoping he would be like, you again.
I literally want to grab him and be like, Ripley is my favorite show ever, but it's so uncool. You just have to pretend like they're not there. And obviously, like, what I experienced is literally nothing compared to that. But I was on my Friday night, I had an experience which to this day is the only really negative experience I've had, which is like, so this is like a night out, it's deep into the night out at a place in Glastonbury, which is, you're definitely not allowed to film there. And it's kind of like, it's a very hot place to be, and it's sort of like clothing optional, hence why the filming is not a thing. And I was in the smoking area looking for my friend who's outside the smoking area. And people are like sitting on the floor, and there are like this group of girls who look at me on the phone and are like giggling at me and pointing at their phone and pointing at me, which is fine, you know, not the nicest thing to be doing, but you know, whatever. And I would have, if I wasn't on the phone,
you're clothed.
I'm wearing shorts.
Right, that's
it.
That's fine. Okay,
as is basically everyone else.
That's
People
fine.
aren't really wearing clothes. It's very, very hot in there.
That's fine. But the adult stuff's tucked away.
Yeah. I have pants on.
I'm just
visualizing. I'm very much in view of other people.
I'm a visual learner, James. Please.
But like everyone's probably not wearing like the minimum clothing.
Gotcha.
Okay. And they've like sort of laughed and giggled and pointed at me and pointed at their phone and pointed at me, which is fine. And I would have gone and just like waved hello if they were like recognizing me if I wasn't on the phone. I continued on the phone, and when I turned back around, they were filming me and giggling and laughing, and then when I looked, they like stopped filming all of a sudden while I was like topless at 4 a.m. at a rave, and I just thought that's really not nice. And all of a sudden, I felt really vulnerable. Felt a bit vulnerable, and I said, "Why have you done that?" And then they just giggled, and then I just walked away, which was really not kind. So that's the only interaction that I thought was really uncool. And obviously, there's no like actual. I don't really experience a problem. I don't live my day thinking people are going to stop me and say hello. No. But when they do, it's a lovely surprise. But I think that's really uncool.
It is uncool. You don't film. You really shouldn't be filming strangers anyway.
No.
And especially if they're in a situation
and to
of
giggle.
Yeah.
Because if you were laughing and then you said, "Oh hi, we're in fact totally fine," but to film me,
Maybe they
when
thought you
I'm
were someone
very
else.
much like, I'm
Yeah.
having a good time. That's not cool.
Do you know who? When I said they thought you were someone else. Do you know who I think? I hope this is. I don't want this come across as an insult, but I'm like, if you keep podcasting, James.
Yeah.
There is a version of you right now that in 10 years' time that you could be. Is if you got some more tattoos, you look like a guy. Do you know Pete Wicks?
Yeah.
I look at him and I'm like, that's James. If James has a lot more work done, gets some tattoos, and in 10 years' time, that's you.
Pete Wicks is like really, he's ex-Towie, isn't he?
Yeah.
Really well manicured, immaculate beard line on his face. Very,
neck tattoo.
very gorgeous piercing eyes.
Yeah,
has a
absolutely.
lot
Well
longer
dressed.
hair than me. Yes, very loves a low shirt and all that.
But I was like, he came across my feed. I was like, this is a James variant in the future.
I'm channeling
James.
homeless Pete Wicks, definitely for sure.
I'm sorry that happened to you,
He's doing
James.
very well, Pete Wicks. I think people are really like catching on to
Yeah.
his. He's got sort of like a no nonsense, dry humour to him, doesn't he?
I think isn't that the name of his podcast? No nonsense.
No, I thought he was staying relevant with Sam Thompson.
I don't know what I'm talking about. But James, I'm sorry you had that experience.
Isn't
at
that terrible?
Glastonbury. It is terrible.
I think that's bad.
I hope that footage never sees the light of day.
Yeah, but that must happen to actual famous people all the time.
Yeah, you're just trying to live your life. You know.
I was, you know what? I nervously checked our DMs in case someone had tagged us in that, which is not nice because if it was, nobody wanted to see me like that. Wasn't be like, oh great, share just right. No.
No.
It'd be bad for the brand.
You'd call our agent.
You
and
would
say,
have had to have
"Bury
released
it."
a statement.
I would have to come out whilst you're still in
like a
Glastonbury.
black story, but with like text over it.
Hi guys, you might have seen the footage of James. At
As some of you may
Glastonbury.
be aware, James,
James, if you're seeing this, come home. Everything's fine.
my fellow sirens.
Yeah. I'm asking you to stay at home.
You must stay
Stay-
off Instagram.
Welcome back to Pulp Kitchen, episode 187. Last week
back.
we had a bumper episode. We
Oh.
talked about Formula One and we talked about 28 years later.
Big blockbuster tune in July, isn't it? Right now, we're in the middle.
Oh, we're right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
We're right in the thick of it. And do check that episode out if you haven't listened already, because we had an interview with Alex Garland and Danny Ball that James did. And we loved 28 years later. We talked
Yeah.
about F1 quite positively. I mean, I hadn't seen it at that point.
Yeah.
And I'll give my thoughts on F1 later
please,
this
yeah.
episode. But this week, carrying on with summer blockbuster season, Jurassic World Rebirth.
Sorry, before you do, I was thinking about that episode and I was going, I'm really proud of the fact that we had a great episode of the podcast
Yeah.
nonetheless, but like an interview with the writer and director. I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. I did another story last night just to be like, because I said people are saying there's no more good films out. And I was like, this is a really, really great
Yes.
film that me and George both really loved. And
Yeah.
it's an interesting conversation if you want to go and listen to it. And it has an interview. Pulp Kitchen is firing on all cylinders.
I
Go and
back
check
it
it
again.
out.
28 years later, a movie that feels fresh. That is a reboot,
even in
in
that
aspect,
sense.
feels fresh and new and exciting. So check that out. And don't forget to check out Double Take as well. James is at Glasgow,
Yes.
but we had some hot news last
Oh
week,
my
James.
God, the hottest news ever.
Denis Villeneuve as Bond director and Social Network Part 2. We talked about last week, Double Take.
Someone in the crowd was like, they'd recognised me and they were like, when are you going to release a video about Denis Villeneuve Bond? I was like, well, I'm not doing it here. I think George is on it back at home.
My fellow science.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we might touch on it again in Double Take this week. So if you haven't caught up with that, do so already. It's the best way to support us on Patreon. That's our exclusive news show there. James, anything to add before we get on with the show?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, Jurassic World Rebirth, the 7th Jurassic Park movie. After the original 3, then they had a break. Then they brought back with Jurassic World in 2015. Then you had Fallen Kingdom, Dominion. And now this is like the reboot of the reboot, or the rebirth. Directed by Gareth Edwards, who did The Creator most recently. And you spoke to, didn't you?
Yeah,
after?
briefly, unofficially. In the foyer
yes.
of the BFI IMAX.
Yes, you grabbed him. And he's made some, I don't mind Gareth Edwards. He also made Rogue One, which we're quite big fans of. He did Monsters, Godzilla. He's made some interesting films.
He seems to sort of yo-yo between mega franchise input and then sort of more independent venture of his.
And Jurassic World Rebirth, the plot is basically this. Kind of touching on, but also keeping an arm's distance from the events of the most recent Jurassic World movies. Yes, dinosaurs are in the world now, in the real world, but they're dying out again. They cannot handle the climate, the temperature, the extremes of the planet. And indeed, the beginning of the film, we see a diplodocus stranded in New York because it's escaped a zoo. Is that what?
Bronchosaurus.
Thank you. I don't know. A diplodocus is the only one I can say in my head.
I don't know what a diplodocus is.
Diplodocus. I think the Americans say diplodocus, but
Is it Dilophosaurus?
No, diplodocus.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm going to show you.
Yeah. Okay. I believe you. There must be so many variants of like.
They
the
did exist for
Brachiosaurus.
160 million years, didn't they?
Fine.
Somewhere along the chain.
The ones with the long necks that
One
eat
with the long
vegetables.
necks. Anyway, early on in the film, we find a diplodocus-looking dinosaur that's wandered out of a zoo and it's got all confused because they cannot handle life on Earth. The place they're able to exist and thrive still on planet Earth, though, is just around the equator, where there's more oxygen and the temperature is more like it was millions and millions of years ago. In this mixture, we have Scarlett Johansson, who plays Zora Bennett, basically a mercenary / ex-special ops woman who is very good at extraction and breaking in and breaking out, essentially, in a really sort of high-fashion way. Rupert Friend as Martin Krebs, the slipperiest of slipperiest rich people who represents the front of a pharmaceutical company who wants to send Zora to one of the dinosaur islands to get DNA from the big dinosaur creatures to help with cardiovascular health. And he's going to spin it and sell it for millions of dollars.
He's also the guy you get for like slippery scumbag, isn't it?
Oh yeah, Rupert Friend. Easily, yeah. He's good at it.
He's a great actor, but he does a lot of that work.
Yes, absolutely. And in order to do this, they need a dinosaur expert. So they recruit Dr. Jonathan Loomis, played by Dr. Henry Loomis, played by Jonathan Bailey, in a lovely knitted jumper.
Gorgeous knitwear.
Gorgeous knitwear. Lovely, cute little glasses. And he is a dinosaur expert.
As slutty little glasses.
They are such little glasses. And we meet him and the dinosaur exhibition at the Natural History Museum is basically closing down. People have lost interest in dinosaurs. They wanted to see new things and they've kind of waned off of it, which, as I'll touch on later, feels a little bit meta. And they say, well, how would you like to go see some real dinosaurs? And he says, yes, but what are you going to do? Oh, is this a mission? Whatever. Anyway, he's on board. They go to somewhere in the Caribbean, Central Equator, and they meet up with Mahershala Ali, who plays Duncan Kincaid, which is an incredibly Scottish name, but I don't understand this for this American mercenary. He is there just sipping beer, used to know Zora Bennett.
No, George, it's a Heineken Zero.
Oh, yeah.
After a refreshing sip of Heineken Zero, they then go on their mission.
The product placement in this film is more egregious than Formula One. Than the F1 movie.
It's some of the most like sort of it's rebirthing of commercial relationships more than a rebirth.
Yeah,
of the
it is.
franchise.
It's just like, don't forget to run away from this dinosaur while getting the refreshing taste of Dr. Pepper.
What you haven't mentioned is that the opening scene involves a Final Destination-esque problem with a Snickers wrapper.
Yes,
that is caught up in some sort of door valve, which surprisingly malfunctions the entire lab,
entire security system,
which causes some sort of malfunction, which leads on to plots later. But yeah, confectionery is like the third supporting actor.
Yes, the M&Ms later on.
Oh, and a shot where it cuts to one of the child actors just going, ooh.
Yeah.
Eating an M&M. And there's like Dorito packets and crisps and chocolate bars all over their sort of like techie table map.
Yeah.
Where anyone in their right mind would sweep it off. But no, we've got... It was really quite something.
The budget is 40% sugar. Let's just take it that way.
It was like cool Mars Foundation, cool Doritos, cool Gatorade. Get them on the phone right now. Snickers paid how much?
Yeah.
Right, let's start a bidding war.
This rogue band together decided we're going to go to the island and we're going to get the DNA samples so we can get paid a huge amount of money and then we can retire and then this guy can sell it off to help cardiovascular health. But is that the only plot in this movie? No, we get another one. There is a family. A family. That's fun. There is a family sailing from, I didn't know you could do this, sailing from, was it
Barbados
to Cape Town?
Cape Town. I mean, technically,
well, I guess anything's
it's
possible.
a pretty hefty expedition
in
across
that
the Atlantic.
boat as well, in a sailboat.
With only one competent sailor.
Yes.
I think that's very irresponsible.
They get into some difficulty in the water and end up being sort of picked up by the mercenary mission. And then you have this sort of chalk and cheese, this contrast between a family unit in with these mercenaries on a mission. Anyway, dinosaur activity happens. Big dinosaurs there. They've got to get 3 dinosaurs. They've got a hit list to get. They've got to get DNA from a flying dinosaur, and a water-based dinosaur, and a giant long-necked dinosaur. And why? Because they have the biggest heart valve, so they've got to have it big. Even though at one point they decide to get it from an egg. Do you not think that was strange? I thought you said they had to be huge. Anyway,
They've got these sort of like injection cannons, RPGs, that like will, if you get it right, it will suck onto their hide, get the blood, and then it like shoots off and parachutes back, and they've got to catch it.
Anyway, that's basically the plot. You can probably tell from the tone of our voices about where this is going to go, but James, Jurassic World Rebirth, over to you.
So I actually have now, after having seen this film, I really feel like my impression of what the Jurassic Park World franchise is has become very crystallized in my brain. Because we had Parks 1, 2, and 3. Park 1 being, I think, easily
iconic, almost a perfect movie.
The best, almost perfect movie. One of the best films in the franchise, but also arguably one of the greatest films of all time.
Yeah.
Right? It really is brilliant.
Yeah.
And its sequels have always kind of been of diminishing returns. I think actually Jurassic World 1 offering a look at what the park actually would have been like, I think is a very, very good idea. And that's a sort of solid, good, decent film that I think, despite also having a lot of egregious product placement, by the way, I think it still sort of ultimately worked as a film, but the sequels to that really, really didn't. Now we're getting this awkward fourth Jurassic World film, which isn't really a sequel to Jurassic Worlds 1, 2, and 3, but it's called Rebirth. I have no idea why it's called Rebirth. There's nothing particular that is rebirthed apart from commercial opportunities for Universal and confectionery companies. I'm sort of just now realizing, coming out of this film, is that it does just kind of tread water and make money and go along and just sort of film by numbers entertainment. And that's what this film really is. And my surprising takeaway was that I mostly felt very little watching it. Is it particularly unpleasant to watch and experience? Not necessarily, but nothing about it gave me anything to think about. It's very standard Jurassic territory with very little to reinvent or remake or reimagine. It is someone in the pursuit of greed, hiring people who are originally apprehensive to go to a place which would be considered very dangerous to go and get something, which obviously goes wrong. And the film just left me with so little to do. And even towards the end, which I think, maybe the third act picked up a bit, it just ultimately felt like a photocopy of some of the greatest scenes we'd seen before, almost literally inspired. Yes, there is a moment with the Bronchiosaurs where the incredible John Williams score from the original swells, and I wouldn't be lying, that really did sort of get me. But you are just replaying the greatest hits.
That's what I thought,
at that point. It's not a new idea. I can't really give this film credit for that moment. There's sort of scenes which are mirroring the kitchen scene from the first one, which again just felt like I was being fed the same slop over and over again. I think it is a bit of a shame because I'm not massively unrecommending it. I think if you did find yourself seeing it, you're not going to have the most miserable time. It's just slightly disappointing that this is where the franchise is leading itself towards, where we will get one of these every 4 to 5 years, and the series will just kind of tread water and bank on the success of the first. Gareth Edwards taking this on is kind of an interesting one because I actually quite liked the creator in some senses, even though at parts it felt a bit maybe a bit misled and it needed to be slightly tighter. But as a filmmaker, he's someone, the way he talks about film, I think is really exciting. And in his Q&A for the creator, it had just been announced he was going on to do Jurassic World Rebirth. And I always thought he's a great pick to do Jurassic World because I really think he believes what makes these types of films good. He also said in that Q&A, very politically and corporately, in so many words, that he had had a really miserable time. Not his words, mine. I thought it was very having polite. He had a very miserable time working in a franchise structure for Star Wars, and that the creator represented his own refreshing palate cleanse. And so I was quite surprised to see him jump back into Jurassic Park or Jurassic World. So I'm sort of like disappointed from Gareth Edwards' perspective on this. I think some of the product placement really is egregious. Some of the most egregious I've ever seen, which really just makes me feel like I'm consuming this vessel for commercial opportunities. No one in the film particularly annoys me. No. I don't feel like the CG is particularly bad. It just never, ever gave me anything to think about, and that's what's sort of a big disappointment for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're slightly closer, have slightly more affection for this franchise than I do. So I think
for the first film, I have a more affection
yes, you do.
for. Actual franchise, I kind of
Jurassic Park, but I think you've seen it more times than me. I think it has more of a place in your sort of 100%. Core film canon.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed by this. I couldn't believe how derivative and obvious and predictable and slow and ploddy it was. I think let's talk about the fact that maybe cynical of me, but I think it's really clear that there were two drafts of a script here that they've ended up blending together. The whole subplot, or plot rather, with the family
Didn't work for me.
didn't work, but actually I feel like existed. It was like a hangover from a previous iteration of the draft. When we first meet the family and they're on the boat and they have this encounter in the ocean with the dinosaur in the water, that actually would have made a fantastic prologue, an opening scene. Because we're given no context to it. They're just out on the ocean. But I really do feel like there was a previous draft where this family, they are the main characters. They end up washing up on this island, and then they meet these mercenaries. Thank goodness they've been saved. Oh, wait, these guys are up to bad trouble. And then later on they said, well, actually, why don't we make those mercenaries the main character? Because then we can get Scarlett Johansson, and then we can do... And then that became the thing. And you have this very awkward pull between these two stories where you'll be following Scarlett Johansson, Jonathan Bailey, Mahershala Ali, and like, yeah, this is okay. I'm in. And then they'll switch to the family and you'll go, oh my God, this film is still happening. Yeah. This other film that's within this film is still happening alongside. And you have very obvious, annoying blockbuster tropes where, for example, a character will injure their leg in the first act, but will be walking and jumping and running in the third act. Like, I'm like, really? Are we still doing that?
Also, the introduction of a cute little animated... dinosaur
merchandising opportunity
that has no plot relevance at all, and is only there to sell toys. Even in Star Wars, it's like, okay, but R2-D2 he's a MacGuffin in a way. He has a function.
Yes,
he carries something.
Yeah.
This little dinosaur does nothing but just jump around and look cute. Sorry.
So let's start. I mean, I think it starts. You obviously have a nice little prologue action scene at the beginning, which kind of hooks you in, and it almost has like horror movie overtones. And I thought, okay, here we go. Then we go to New York City, and you're given a 25-minute first act, which is pretty boring, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's exposition dumps followed by...
You're not held in suspense. I know you're going to go.
We know you're going to go. And I know you from the thing. And I know you to think, hey, well, maybe if I can make this one last job. Yeah, we've seen this movie before. That bothers me. And then I have a real issue with with movies like this when they cheapen you out because they go, this is Jurassic World Rebirth. This is a huge movie. And you know what we're going to do for the first act? What? We're going to put everyone on a tiny little boat. So it's a tiny little sound stage. Oh, okay. I thought this was going to be much more expansive. No. But in the second act, we're going to walk through the jungle. Oh, okay. And in the third act, it's all going to be set at night. And I'm like, you're cheapening out there because we want to be in the world. You see what you're doing. You're filming it in a way that you just have 5 actors walk along some scenery. And I saw right through that, and it really bothered me.
Which is ironic because that won't have been a cheap film.
It won't have been a cheap film at all.
North of 200 million.
But that bothers me. Benedict Townsend a friend of the show made this point that Jonathan Bailey's character is far too confident when he's in the wild for someone who is not a mercenary, who has not has not met a real life dinosaur before. Where's his lack of confidence? Where's his fear? Where's the tension? He handles himself pretty well. He abseils on a 500 foot sheer cliff pretty well, almost free soloing at some point.
Indiana Jones in that way, isn't it? You can't be the cowboy and the scientist.
Yeah, exactly.
Indiana Jones could do that.
Yeah, and like in the first Jurassic Park, like yes, Jeff Goldblum was confident and cocky, but he gets injured halfway through and he's kind of incapacitated.
And that's scary because he can't run. And he's relying on other people.
Yes,
let's go faster.
Exactly. Yes, there is, I'd say, one great scene not great actually, a good scene with the T-Rex that's pretty well choreographed, but also has plot holes in it. The whole thing just felt very toothless and not exciting. And I think it builds to a conclusion that gets increasingly silly and dumb. And I think a good test is that I brought Anna with me to the screening, and who's not,
a big Jonathan Bailey fan.
A big Jonathan Bailey fan. But, I sometimes need a regular punter to tell me how this major blockbuster is playing for them, because it's all, you and I see films every week. And she thought it was, awful. I'm like, okay, so it's not like it's playing to the crowd much. Like, and she likes Jurassic Park.
We'd watch too many films.
And your cousin, who came with us to the screening, the best thing he said when we came out, he said, it'd be all right. You could put it on Boxing Day. And I'm like, what a damning with faint praise that is there. You really think
he loves Jurassic Park, like me.
Right, he loves Jurassic Park. And I think one thing that bothers me is that when I say it's toothless, I actually think it scrimps on the gore. And don't get me wrong, Jurassic Park has never been like a super gory film. It's always been family leaning. It's always in the UK. Samuel L. Jackson's it's always lent around the 12A mark, 12A certification in the UK, right? But I remember going to see Jurassic Park 3 in the cinema and being really scared of stuff. And I remember my mum covering my eyes at some bits. I remember the Velociraptor claw like going into the back of someone's head. I remember the reveal of the
There's a good
skeleton
sense of threat in 3.
That's what's missing in this. The sort of when people are dispatched by dinosaurs, it's kind of hidden and a little bit. The film pulls its punches. And I'm like, you need some nastiness. Otherwise, this thing has got just no hard edges at all. It's completely smooth. So I really was disappointed. It looks amazing because it's shot on film, right? Shot on Kodak. But maybe you can help me with this. I thought at times that because they shot it on film, some of the admittedly very good CGI still stood out, because I'm wondering if am I reading that correctly? Like shooting something on a mechanical analog process like film, intermixing advanced CGI, I think I could still see the.
I would usually say the opposite of true. It's true. Film tends to lend itself to a softer image, which therefore CG, which is softer, should blend better into it theoretically. Whereas if you shoot it on a really sharp digital camera, your CG therefore has to be properly on point, because that will look mushy compared to the shot. I think. But who knows?
I was probably looking too closely, but I think. It gives me no pleasure to be disappointed, because I'm excited for summer blockbuster season, and I like the talent involved. If you honestly gave me a movie with just forget Jurassic World, if you'd said to me, "Do you want to go see a movie with Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, and Jonathan Bailey?" I go,
blockbuster.
Or any film actually. Even I would love to see those three talent, but they really don't use them very well at all.
On your writing point, the film does have an awkward 4-act structure, and usually when I say it's got 4 acts, I mean that in relation to 2 third acts. But this I felt like has 2 second acts. You've got the bit in New York, and end of Act 1 should really be okay, let's go, and Act 2 opens with them on the boat. But you've got this like quite extended boat sequence where the characters are trapped, and then sort of like felt like more than halfway through the movie, then our characters arrive to the island, which kind of felt like resetting the sort of pace a little bit. And I had a couple of moments, even in that T-Rex scene, which I think the choreography of was quite fun. Some of it felt like it was happening in slow motion, and I could have picked up the pace of quite a lot of these moments and action scenes. I thought the flying birds one was okay, but I never really got that much of a sense of threat. Like, you might fall, you are 500 feet in the air. They didn't build up to it enough. They just sort of like abseiled down and got on with it. And I felt like there could have been more of a moment made of that whole thing. So yeah, like, it's just very, very nothing.
And very inconsequential.
Yeah, and I like, there's nothing, no plot point really holds you in suspense. There's nothing about it that'll take you by surprise. And Jurassic Park 1 is not a complicated film, but it does leave you with interesting things to think about. And there are interesting lines of dialogue and interesting conversations that are had.
You were spending so long thinking about whether you should, you didn't think whether you could, you never thought about whether you should. That's a great idea.
And John Hammond as a character like becomes really conflicted, and that's fun. It's all quite suspenseful and engaging, and this just doesn't really get me going. I think I'm predisposed to root for a Jurassic something film personally. I think I'm quite primed to get excited. It just sort of hummed for me.
And so sadly, like I kind of touched on at the beginning, I actually kind of left the screening room feeling a little bit like the audiences they talk about in the film who have had enough of dinosaurs, because really. That, especially that scene with the Bronchiosaurus, you say, with the John Williams swells, I didn't get anything out of that, because I kind of thought, I've seen it. I've seen this before. We've all seen this movie before. And actually, there's only one good Jurassic Park movie, and it's the first one. Jurassic 3 has its moments. I've not seen The Lost World, actually. I've heard it also has its moments. Jurassic World has its moments, but it's not the same. And actually, there's only so many iterations you can do this. Because also, inherently, you got to remember with dinosaurs, I think the thing is that they're actually a neutral character. They only want to attack you in certain environments. They're not actually like, it's not a slasher film. Aliens is one of my favorite films. And I was watching this and I was like, Aliens came out 40 years ago, and that did this better. It's we're going to have to go back to the place, but it's different now. But are you up for it? We're going to bring some guns. And ScarJo in this is Ripley, and Jonathan Bailey is Hicks, and Mahershala Ali is Jonathan Bailey is Bishop, and Mahershala Ali is Hicks, and the family is Newt. But like, I feel nothing. I'm so much more interested in Aliens' version of that. So.
You know what they did well in the other films is that they created quite nice rules for the dinosaurs. They established that like, don't move. The T-Rex vision is based on movement. That's quite fun, because if you're so scared, you have to stay still. That's fun. The Velociraptors hunt in packs. They're smart. They're thinking. And even even in World, I like the idea of like they've sort of trained the velociraptors, but not really. It's kind of like this, wild nuclear bomb. You can kind of harness it, but not quite. There was no like this new dinosaur. It's going to try and hunt you in this way. There was no like, give me some rules to play with.
It's attracted to light. Great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, a bit of a negative take on that film from us, guys. But
Worse than I thought.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed with it. That's like a 2.5 star for me.
As always, guys, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Jurassic World, because I imagine a lot of people will be going to see it. For a lot of people I've spoken to who are very casual film watchers, they said, "Oh, Jurassic World! I do love Jurassic Park movies." So I think it still has quite a lot of cachet with people, and I think a lot of people end up going to see it. It's very universal.
Yeah.
It's very easy to sell the ticket, literally, and I'm sure people will go and see it. So I'm interested to hear not just if you had a good time, but did your kids have a good time? Did your parents have a good time? What was it like for the other people you took to go and see Jurassic World Rebirth? As always, you can send in your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, your reviews to hello@popkitchenpodcast.com. We'll read them out on the show. So, George, you have now caught up with F1, which I reviewed last week. You can go check that out if you haven't already. How did you get on with it?
Yeah, so I saw it at a big IMAX screening, as it should be, last week, and I'd come fresh from your review, it ringing in my ears, and similar, if not a little bit less, probably because I have absolutely no stake in Formula One.
Would happen,
And sure enough, James, yes, there were loads of times when people would go, "Oh," and I'd be like, "I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. Look, I don't even know what Max Verstappen looks like. Okay, right, I know the name, but you're really detached. I only know Lewis Hamilton.
It's kind of like, if I was to reference football, it's like Jose Mourinho. And
I get it.
Like people like that looking at the camera.
The fact they're important people in the sport who make an appearance. Look, let's start with the good stuff. I love the opening. I think the opening is great. The Led Zeppelin Daytona race, fireworks in the background.
It's a long tracking shot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. What a statement of intent. And when that happened, I thought, I'm into this. And actually, to be fair to the whole film, it is very well made. I never thought Kaczynski was making a bad film.
Always looks slick.
It always looks slick. They've spent the money. They've not scrimped. When I was moaning about Jurassic Park cheapening out, there's no part of this I thought they cheapened out. F1 turned up with a big bag of cash, and Apple turned up with a big bag of cash, and they said, "Go spend it." Yeah. And there are very well crafted racing sequences and beautiful suits, and God damn it, Brad Pitt looks great in a pair of sunglasses and an untucked
and in the overalls, really.
An untucked denim shirt, and he's walking down with his leather satchel, and because he's rusty, but he's got one race left in him, man.
Yeah. There's a bit of Top Gun shots there, by the way, when he's walking from afar and they shoot him at 200 mil walking over. It's
with the gasoline on the floor, and it's like the trails. Like it makes. It looks gorgeous. Look, I'm not immune to the charms of that. Okay, I'm not immune to Brad looking down his glasses at you. It's a human being, and in that kind of sort of very commercialized, perfume ad kind of way, it's kind of intoxicating. I don't actually think it gives Brad Pitt a lot to do. It's definitely not his best performance at all. I think it actually at times makes him look a little bit weak. The standout performance for me was Kerry Condon, who I thought was the spark in the movie. Sure. Don't get me wrong, Dam's an interest, great. Javier Bardem, great. But Kerry Condon is the kind of sparky, fun, hey, what are you doing? No, hey, come on. But then they've got this kind of like chemistry happening. I really liked her in it. There is also the irony, James, that for a movie that is about expediency and efficiency and getting places faster, it is too long. Yeah. Too long. If this had cut 20 minutes, I think I would have been like, that was a pretty solid time.
It's one or two too many races, I thought.
My
theory is that they were allowed to film at all of them. Yeah. And therefore all of them should have a place in the film. Yeah. It was like, and now we're in Abu Dhabi, and now we're in Monaco, now we're in here. I guess.
I wonder if F1 has politics as well. It's like, you can't take out that.
You can't go there because
you can't. Yeah, you can't show that one and not that one.
Yeah. Why did that one only get a montage? They paid a lot of money. Exactly. That should have been a key race. Yeah.
I also think the stakes could have been better. Like, ultimately,
there's no antagonist,
and it really could have done with some external force on it. A rival racing team or something. I don't want to lean too much into sport cliches, but at least in Top Gun Maverick, there is the threat of death, right, and war.
Yeah.
So there's
Which they can't do in F1.
They can't do in F1. In
Unless
this
you're
one,
making
it's
Iron
just
Man
like,
2.
hey, don't you drive a little bit faster than me? Well, no, maybe you should drive it. And I'm like, that's not ultimately.
Yeah.
And then last minute in the third act, they sort of ramp up Tobias Menzies' character a little bit, and I'm like, oh yeah, you've sort of been in this movie.
But it's like a point I made about it being a sports movie is that like sports movies should get personal, and I don't think this film got personal enough. It was like there's inter competition, and the people they were racing against, while I think it's great, it's like Max Verstappen is behind you, and that's cool because it is Max Verstappen's car. But what I think they should have had someone else who was pushing their buttons a bit.
Or maybe Brad Pitt and Javier Bardem don't get along so well. Maybe Brad Pitt has a score to settle with Javier Bardem because of what happened 90 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, just an edge.
90 years
Give me
ago.
something. Just give me 30 years ago. So I said, in the 90s.
90.
I was in the 90s. In the 90s. I want just give
God, he
me
looks good.
some edge. Give me something. But it's fine. It's definitely I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed Jurassic World Rebirth.
Sure, I'd say
It's
so.
a more competent, polished
For
film.
me, like where it really sort of fell apart and was really lacking is in like some of the arguments between Sonny and Damson Idris' character. It was like in a corridor. Hey man, you got a fucking thing. I was like, woof.
Yeah.
That does not work.
No, I don't.
But all the racing, very slick. Like every time they race and they cut together the sequence and it's coherent as to where everyone is and who's who. I'm like, all of that is so well choreographed.
Anyway, I'm not the only person who's seen F1. I went to my screening last week, James, and I bumped into journalist Adam Barlow.
Journalist Adam
If you have
Barlow.
the sort of collegiate fellow
Two
journalist
rights.
handshake, and he was there with a friend sports journalist as well. So he was there representing film journalism. He was there with his friend. Adam Barlow writes in and says, F1 the movie, very cool, but cliche. Dear Pulp Kitchen Limited, I hope
you.
you're both winning. I like that. It's true. I'm writing this email as I return home for my second screening of F1 the movie in 24 hours. Forget 24 hours of Le Mans. It's 24 hours of the movies, baby. Viva la cinema. So he's going to see it twice in a day. My dad is a big car man and has been a salesman at various companies for my whole life. He could watch F1 while I was growing up, but it wasn't until Netflix's Drive to Survive when I properly became a fan.
Yeah.
It's a special interest of mine. There's a nice joke about that, isn't there, with Tobias Menzies. He says, I've seen all of Drive to Survive. I love your stuff. It's a special interest of mine that comes and goes. As a result, I really look forward to this film. It largely lived up to my expectations. It's very much Top Gun Maverick on tarmac. The immersion is impeccable and the soundtrack builds the hype of a Grand Prix very well. Fortunately, it is so cliche, and I thought the female characters in particular suffered the most. There was no scene that truly surprised me. That's true. Nothing surprised me. Nothing really surprised me, even if it was tense and exciting. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts, lads. It was lovely to see George at the screen too. All the best, Adam.
There's a great moment in Top Gun Maverick. I want to say this is like halfway through the film where what they have to do has been explained. And like, Maverick is like coaching these guys through. And it's a montage with Tom Cruise re-explaining how difficult this is to the team, intercut with them trying and failing to get the thing, and you didn't go fast enough, you're going too fast, you left the man behind. And it's also an argument relating to him not wanting Goose's son to do it, and it ends in this great fight between Glenn Powell's character and it's this building tension of like there are real stakes and personal stakes, and this wonderfully edited moment with crashes and failures, and it's like, hang on, you son of a bitch. It needed something like that with a real conflict in the middle. Damson Idris and Brad Pitt bickering a little bit was always going to be resolved. They are characters that never really had more to argue about other than who should go faster.
Yes,
needed another injection of an antagonist of something.
Yeah.
Or give Max Verstappen some lines and see how that goes. Which would be a terrible idea.
Or just put one of the drivers on another team,
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah. Make a fake brand and team.
Yeah.
And just give that an edge. Kind of ridiculous as well that he would be drafted back in his 50s.
Yeah, it's physically very demanding. And also, I liked what you said in your review, where like Damson Idris is doing like all the high tech training.
Yes, yeah.
But
The
Brad Pitt's just
data-driven.
like, I'm just gonna go for a jog.
Go for a jog. Yeah.
On tarmac.
Yeah. Right, sure. Should we go through some of the other emails that we get sent into the show every single week? As always, guys, if you want to send in your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, you can do by emailing them in to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. Just
like
Letty did. Letty writes in, Glasto highlight and F1. Dear James and George and James, I hope you are both well. I recently, like so many, have just been to Glastonbury, and there was one surprise act I was hoping to see at Worthy Farm. That was, of course, Mr. James Breville. To my absolute delight, whilst literally discussing with my mate how I was hoping to bump into James, who comes along but the man himself. I had a lovely chat with James and said I would write in. So here I am. I've just seen F1. Oh yeah, it was so lovely to meet you, and it was just, again, one of those lovely interactions. It always took me by surprise. I'd just seen F1 at the Cineworld in Leicester Square on the IMAX screen, so I was listening to your review on the way to Glastonbury. When seeing the movie, I didn't realise it was the same director as Top Gun Maverick. And having discovered that through your review, I saw a lot of similarities in the style between F1 and Top Gun Maverick. They are both a bit silly, really. It's both a bit silly, really cheesy, and a bit predictable, but ultimately you have a good time with it. I agree that I could have done with one less car race, and I think the shooting of the races was beautifully done. I thought Kerry Condon was really good in this film, and I'd like to see her in more things, although her character has terrible taste in men. Spoiler, I thought the only other thing on F1 is a PSA to all sirens. Do not sit in the back row of the IMAX screen in Cineworld at Leicester Square, which is where we both saw it. The levels between the second to back row and the back row aren't the same as the rest of the cinema, so anyone that sits in front of you will ruin your viewing. Please see attached how ridiculous the view was. I was livid and thankfully moved, but not to an ideal centre spot as originally planned. Let me look at this photo.
Yeah, it's someone's full
it's literally
skull.
Someone's head. That's really annoying. That is really... I know exactly what that means. It's like they've added that extra row, but not further up. Sorry for continuing this long email, but I, like a lot of listeners, have been working through the archives, currently on episode 58, and have a couple of takeaways. George, episode 58 was what?
Ooh,
I'm
good
scrolling
question.
back.
Okay.
I'm scrolling back.
That would have bbeen early 24.
Hold on, let me get it up. Episode 50.
Okay,
God, this is a long time ago.
Okay, was that early 2024? Because episode 50 was like November the 1st, 20...
Oh, okay. I think you'll struggle to remember what this is.
Is
So
it
is early 2023.
Early 2024, surely, right?
Nope.
Oh, no, because we did... Oh, my God, yeah, early 2023.
So cast your mind back.
Okay, so
Right.
is it the Pale Blue Eye?
Yes, it's the Pale Blue Eye! It's the Pale Blue Eye. It was January, right?
Yeah.
Pale Blue Eye, The Bear, would have been season 1, and The Offer.
Wow. That is a long time ago.
That's a long time ago.
That's when you watched The Bear and I hadn't.
Yeah.
Wow, oh, my God. Okay.
Sorry, it's always fun to do that. A couple of takeaways. Number 1. For some Pulp Kitchen history, I advise everyone who hadn't listened to episode 125, brackets potential spoiler, it is the invention of the sound game, which was such a nice surprise, as I thought you'd always done it.
It's like a canon event. Like she's gone to the prequel, and this is how it all started.
You should go do your reading. James, you are obsessed with Hook, but you've never mentioned that Glenn Close does a cameo as a pirate in the film. Please tell me you knew this. Yeah, I know this. I think I must have mentioned it. I have mentioned it. Yeah, it's very strange. It's a very smooth-faced looking pirate who makes a cameo, and you're like, I remember as a kid, I obviously didn't know it was Glenn Close. I was like, there's something weird about that pirate's face, like very heavily made up. George, I'm still in absolute awe of your niche talent for gun impressions. Can't remember what episode it was on. But
was quite
honestly,
recently,
such a talent. No question from
Guys,
me.
if this ever goes up or tits up, I'll hit the road.
George can do like the entire suite of weapons from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. No question from me, but thank you very much for this amazing podcast. I, like many, find it a really comforting and insightful listen. I agree with the recent listener who said that your adolescence review is brilliant. Thank you. James, thank you for not being freaked out by me running over to you at Glasgow. I hope you have recovered. George, I know your brother Joe from our Royal Holloway days. Hi, Joe.
Wow.
Thanks again. As always, I look forward to the 200th episode celebration. News coming soon, hopefully. Having a big meeting about it later this week. Letty. P.S. The Entity has always been shit. I cannot believe that the final MI villain, that was the final Mission Impossible villain. I always remember the scene in Dead Reckoning when they were at the party with White Widow looking around at the screens, looking scared of the PowerPoint presentation. We deserved better. I only got into the Mission Impossible franchise after listening to your episode of what order to watch them in, and then I watched them in the advised order this year, including Mission Impossible 2, which is so shit.
Also, I don't think we advised on the order to watch them. You watched them in the right order. It was just we ranked them.
That's true.
You know, I wasn't saying like watch it 3, 5, 1, 6.
You should generally go as made.
Chronological.
Bless you. So lovely to
Thank
meet
you
you.
so
Thank you
much
so
for
much
that.
for your email.
Okay, let's move on to some 28 years later correspondence, starting with Harrison. Harrison writes in and says, "Aloha, you good selves. Having devoured both 28 days later and 28 weeks later for the first time this past week, my hopes for the third installment were predictably sky high. My, oh my, what a crushing
So
disappointment."
this is what I was saying. I had experienced, as I said, coming out of the premiere screening, mixed reactions. And these are from other people who I overheard and like peers of ours who also do similar things to what we do.
What a crushing disappointment, Harrison says. While 28 weeks later certainly has its pitfalls, it impressively maintained the raw urgency and breakneck pace of the original. The virus itself wasn't just a plot device, it was a character. Its terror explored and discussed in a way that kept the stakes chillingly clear. In 28 years later, however, we're treated to a genuinely brilliantly opening 28 minutes, a time frame so precise it almost feels like an intentional jab, only to send into many, many more minutes of baffling decisions. The first red flag fluttered into view with the opening crawl stating that England had been left to fend for itself. Understood that we aren't everyone's cuppa, but good gravy, not one of our NATO buddies in 28 years could spare a drone to scout out survivors and perhaps offer them a ride out of there. Zombie movies can have heart. Shaun of the Dead, Girl with the Gifts, even Zombieland all nail this, but when the plot of years veers so dramatically away from that, what gives the previous films that pizzazz, it slips into predictably, and dare I say it, blandness? And then there's Ray Fiennes' character, who confidently declares that iodine prevents him from getting... Well, actually, he doesn't say... Sorry, he doesn't... I'll finish your sentence and I'll clarify this. Declares that iodine prevents him for... Is this too much for... No. Prevents him from getting bitten, only to be... It begs the question, what exactly has he been doing for the past 28 years, and how on earth have strangers turning up not driven him completely mad? The whole thing is frustrating shambles, a genuine tragedy that the usual winning combination of Ball and Garland could so utterly fumble the bag here. Still, there's always the next one. Harry from London.
Okay.
Well, no, I mean, just because
I don't think it's ever said that iodine.
No, it says the virus doesn't like iodine, which is like it's a preventative, an optimistic thing. It doesn't actually stop the infected from attacking him.
I would say I disagree with a lot of what you have to say there. Like I don't think you're talking about the virus itself being a plot device, a character, terror explored. I would say this film. Yes, it's set in that world, but it's about something so completely different. It's so clear they wanted to tell a story about something else, about death, about growing up, about contemplating yourself within a wider world, about how you learn from those with you and seek inspiration from those you've not met yet. Like to me, it's so much more about that than it is about what Cillian Murphy got up to in 28 days.
I also think that you mentioned, Harrison, how the virus felt like a character in the first two films, and it was like created this urgency. And you've got to remember that in the first two films, those are still about an outbreak. That is still the whole dramatic thrust of those films is about this virus spreading and catching up with people. Whereas the whole point of 28 years later is that the virus has won. Britain is not allowed. Britain is a land for the infected now. Yeah. It just so happens to have a few survivors in there, and I disagree. I don't think it turns into bland decisions. I think it actually has heart. I think the whole point of the third act of this movie is that it delivers huge heart in a really articulate, surprising way.
It just didn't feel bland. It felt really engaging. From you talk about the first 28 minutes. I'm like, that is very engaging. Sure, there are familiar tropes in there of like, got to take my child to go and teach them how to do that. That has been done before. I'm not going to say this is like the first time that's ever happened, but I still think like the expression of that world and where it is now, nearly 30 years later, was just great.
Yeah, I liked it. It was
just
great. But thank you, Harrison, for your email.
Thank you anyway for your lovely email. This next one is from Ruben. No, it's from Dipper, who writes in and says, "Hi, James and George and James. I want to start this email off by saying that I'm a relatively new listener of the podcast. Welcome. I work at a part-time job in Sainsbury's that shifts that start as early
Inception.
With shifts that start as early as 3 a.m, meaning there are no customers and we can wear headphones. Nice. Job where you can wear headphones is good. I quite like that.
Don't talk to me. I'm listening to the podcast. If you're going to put me here at 3 a.m, let me listen to something.
Let me just go and listen. If you are listening at 3 a.m, keep going. It's good. I bet like it's dark, but the fluorescent light. You know what I mean?
And then in the summer, like 4 a.m, the light starts to bleed in, like high summer.
Yeah. I've been working through your recent reviews as well as some of the back catalogue, both to hear your guys' opinions on films and films I've seen as well as some of the films I've never heard of. I find your commentary thoroughly entertaining, and I love learning facts about films or new films that are coming to our screens soon, especially as a film student myself. Now to the main point, my thoughts on 28 years later. I didn't know until you... I'm just going to zoom in a bit. I didn't know until I heard you discuss it in your episode on that film that some of it was shot on iPhone. I would never have known or even guessed that from my viewing. Like you, I was mesmerised by the techniques used throughout the film and that intercuts certain scenes such as night vision and the Matrix style shots. I think this film stands stands far apart from the other two films in this trilogy and works perfectly as a standalone film without feeling like it strays too far away from the original world created in 28 days. The coming-of-age plotline works perfect, and it was incredibly engaging, and the shift in dynamic from Spike's relationship with his father versus his mother makes for an engaging pull into the film. I watched it in my local cinema with my best friend, who is not such a film buff as I am, but who has not seen either of the other films in the trilogy. I was able to briefly explain the context of the previous films before our screening, but to be honest, I didn't feel like it was needed, as there was enough of an explanation with the opening film text. It's so true. It could be its own film.
Basically, yeah. I think you would, if I was to take someone who hadn't seen it before, you do need to just give a quick explanation of how the virus spreads.
Yeah.
About like how quickly it enacts and how it's like, because obviously there's a bit where Spike's like, don't get it in your eye. We're like,
bit of background,
a little back. But other than that, you're right.
Zombie
It basically
rules,
works.
isn't it?
Yeah.
The coming of age plotline work. I think also like I consume a lot of zombie content. Like I know the zombie rules.
Yes.
I would be like, how does it work?
Well, you can kill these infected without getting their head.
Yeah,
that's one
true.
thing.
The coming of age plotline works perfectly and was incredibly engaging, and the shift in dynamic from Spike's relationship with his father versus his mother makes for an engaging pull into the film. I watched it in my local cinema. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the same thing over again. Opening text, blah, blah, blah. We came out of our screening. His main comment was about how entertaining and funny the film was at points, but also took you through very harrowing and emotional points too. We were laughing out loud, tearing up, tensing on the edge of our seats. It took us every emotion without feeling like we were being thrown all over the place. I do think the ending was a bit odd with the whole learning that there are another two films following this making that ending make more sense to me. I still feel like it was a ridiculous direction to turn that character into. Sorry for the length. I had a lot to say. I hope you're both well and keeping up the awesome work. You're keeping me awake during early, long shifts. Many thanks, Dipper.
Hey, Dipper, if you're currently stacking shelves while you're listening to this, or whatever you're doing, in Sainsbury's at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I hope your shift's going well. I hope you're having a nice, calm, gentle beginning of your day.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening.
I remember when I asked Danny Boyle about just saying like how wonderfully expressive the cinematography was, and like how were the conversations you had with your cinematographer in regards to like how you want to express the narrative. He said something very particular, which was, yes, it was the cinematographer, but also the production designers. But all round, I was working with very confident filmmakers. He's not like he said I worked with the best. It was like I was working with very confident filmmakers. And I think reducing technology slightly, but working with people who are really confident in what they do, I think that's where that type of product comes out. It's like confidence, not necessarily like, oh, we got the best, we had the biggest budget, we had the biggest this. It was like people who really knew what they were doing when in regards to that, which I think is quite an important distinction.
I also want to just say on 28 is that like maybe it's because I watched weeks and years in one day, but I did feel like the afterburn of it for a few days afterwards, when it would get to nighttime, it'd be a bit like this idea, because the infected run so fast, they burst through windows, and this idea that they could just turn up at any moment is quite haunting. And just again, that young father's score. Okay, last 28 email is from Julia Ribaska. Last 28 email is from Julia, who writes in and says, 28 years later,
Julie.
a thank you. Julia.
I said, me Julie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Shaggy and Ali G. 28 years later, a thank you and a question, obviously. Dear James and George and James, I started listening to you around the Barbenheimer era, and I've been absolutely hooked ever since. You've kept me company when I needed it most, and although I haven't engaged much until now, all your hard work has genuinely made me feel like part of a community. I couldn't be more grateful for that. Thank you. I've raved about you guys to literally everyone I know, and will continue to do so. I'm also a huge fan of Double Take, and happy to say I've been a supporter since day one.
Nice. Go and check out Double Take if you haven't already. It's on our Patreon.
I just came out of a screening of 28 Years Later, and I cannot express how excited it made me feel. The score, the characters, the humour, the sheer unpredictability of it all. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. Seriously, I can't imagine what more you could want from a movie. It was scary and warm and moving and even funny at times. Wait, and the cinematography and the score. Did I mention the score? It might be an Addison Rae summer for some, but it's most definitely a young father's summer for me. Thank you for your review and for inspiring me to see it on my day off. You were spot on. Anyway, question time. Although I feel like I've been rambling so much, maybe I should earn question privileges first. I'm really looking forward to seeing Sentimental Value later this summer, and it got me thinking about some of the non-English language films I love. I have to admit, they scratch that itch of being a slightly pretentious film lover. So naturally, I'm curious, what are some of your favourite non-English language films? Okay, we've had this question so many times. But mine would be The Worst Person in the World, Dibs, Force Majeure, and Cold War, just to be patriotic. Can't wait for episode 200. Thanks for the service, guys. All the best, Julia. Originally from Krakow, currently writing from home base, aka Zurich. Good to shout Cold War, the Pavel Pavlikovsky movie. Love that movie. Stylish, gorgeous.
Snap on First Person in the World. It was one of my favourites of that year when it came out. 2023? 2?
1. 2022, here, 21, and don't yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't you miss the beginning though, James? Because you were getting some ice cream.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, just a little bit. It's my fault. It's one of those like...
It's the Italian reveal like 6 months later.
One of those like 5-minute trailers.
Gorgeous movie. I've just, God, mate, Oslo has never looked better. And I can't wait for his new film, which I talked about in Double Take a few weeks ago, which won the Palme d'Or. No, but that is Sentimental Value. That's what we're talking about with Renata Reinsve and
I'm so in love with Renata Reinsve since that film.
Yeah.
This next one is from Ruben, who writes in, Denis Villeneuve directing the next Bond. Hey up, lovely lads. So the news broke that Villeneuve is directing the next Bond film. I need to know what your thoughts are. I'm personally quite looking forward to it. I have rewatched Sicario recently and can see a similar approach being made. My question is, if you'd have had the choice of choosing the next Bond director, who would it have been and why? P.S. What do you think is the best Bond song? Please keep being the best podcast there is, fellas. From Ruben.
Well, I'll start with a song. Do you know what song, Bond song I will stand by and always thought was underrated? Yeah. Is the Another Way to Die, Alicia Keys, Jack White one. That got slated when it came out, but I was a big White Stripes fan. Loved that.
I am a sucker for Goldfinger purely for the trumpets, which is the... It's just fucking incredible.
Yeah.
I'll say I like Madonna's Die Another Day. I think it's cool.
Die another day.
It's not my time to go.
I like GoldenEye, the Tina Turner one.
GoldenEye.
Skyfall's a banger. Adele's Skyfall. That's a banger.
Yeah, I mean, Adele really just bring it home. I think Casino Royale one's really good.
Oh, yeah. I always felt that sounded a bit naff.
I like it. They always kind of deliver. I
don't know if I have a dream director I would have given Bond to.
Well,
I always give Nolan.
My thing is Nolan. It's the basic answer. It's give him carte blanche, give him full creative control.
I'm sure they had that conversation with him, but because Denis Villeneuve hasn't got final cut.
Yes, no, I saved that. We were going to talk about it in Double Take. No, you could do. But basically, guys, if you want to hear our full thoughts on all of this, we do a weekly news show on our Patreon where we go through these sort of, we speculate a bit more about what if and who would and how much and when, and we do lots of casting. So if you are interested, I please would like to direct you to Double Take, and that's the best way to support us. But I think Denis Villeneuve is a brilliant choice.
Yes.
He said publicly he absolutely loves Bond. We know he's good. I think he'll potentially bring a more Dune-y, Blade Runner-y, somber, mesmerizing, still Arrival-esque tone to Bond that I think could be very interesting. Which is a little bit more museum-y.
Have you seen the clip of Matthew Good talking about his Bond, not audition, but he had a meeting with Barbara Broccoli?
Really?
And she was like, so what's your take on Bond? And he was like, well, you've got to take it back to the books. He's an alcoholic, a womanizer, but he hates women, but he hates himself more. Yeah. He's getting older. His job gives him nothing. You've really just got to kind of lean into that, really, the darkness, the grittiness, the toll the job is taking on him. And she was like, next.
Genuinely.
Yeah, she was just like she could. He said you could see in her eyes, just sort of like,
that's not what we
this
want
is
to do.
not what we want to do at all. And he like scared her off a little bit.
The Broccoli still are going to make money from the film.
Fine.
They signed an incredible deal where they got, I think, $1 billion, and they'll make money off the next one.
Cool.
And they don't even have to try and make it.
Hey, good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them. Make money while you can.
Yeah.
Those are all the emails we had for today, guys. There are other emails coming in, but we will get to those, if not in the main episode, sometimes in a bonus bit of episode content as well. But James,
let's end the game.
Yeah. James, as ever, Pulp Kitchen ends
with a game.
And guys, fittingly, as it was mentioned in an email earlier on, I bring the return of the sound game.
Well done.
3 sounds today, James.
Great.
I'm not going to do it takes too long to do a whole bumper pack. I think 3 is perfectly suitable.
We prep the games. You
think
try making a game every week.
It's hard work. I think you will probably get all of these, but
just setting me up for getting none of them.
But I'm just going to put them there anyway for our listeners. And I'm just sorry, I'm looking at my timeline now, and I'm looking at the third clip, and I'm thinking the clip I have is very obvious, and I'm wondering if I go for the less. Do you want the less obvious one, James?
Oh, I have no idea what parameters you're working, so I'll leave it up to your instinct.
I'll keep it to the one it is because it's a better sound clip as it is.
Explain the sound game for our new listeners, George, just in case.
So those who don't know, if you are a new listener, the sound game is that I will play James a clip from a movie, usually about 10 seconds long. It could be a bit of dialogue. It could be just a bit of sound. And James has to tell me what movie that sound is from. Very simple. Listen along at home, play along at home. And James, of course, give the listeners a little bit of time to ingest.
Yes, of course.
And digest. So James, are you ready for your first sound?
Born ready.
Guess the movie from the sound.
Slapping the bass, man.
There you go.
Slapping that bass, man. I slapping that bass.
Please don't do that.
Slapping the bass. Slapping the bass.
For the sake of our relationship.
Slapping that bass.
Please stop.
So I do this immediately.
Yes.
This is a film that I watched on a flight to New York when I think I was like 14, 15. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Was like, something about it is a really funny film.
Yes.
But I think also the altitude,
of course,
gets you going. And I was laughing so loudly that a woman had to tap me on the shoulder and be like, "So I'm so sorry, would you mind?" Because it's middle of the night, so I can over like flight red eye. So I'm so sorry, would you mind just ever so slightly reducing your thing? And I was having the best time. And it also, there's a scene when the characters go for fish tacos.
Yes.
And it always, whenever I have fish tacos, I'm reminded of that film because they had fish tacos.
And the film is?
I Love You Man.
I Love You
with
Man,
Paul
that's right.
Rudd and
Jason
Segel.
I really liked it too. Really surprised me for a big blood budget, quite generic.
I've
looking
not seen it in
comedy.
a really long time, but it is funny and it's structured like a rom-com.
Yes.
And it's the only film that really feels like it's about like proper modern, silly bromance in that way. Like
So the premise is that he is getting married.
he's a guy that doesn't
have any guy
friends.
friends. So he has to start, as it were, dating men, like profiling men to become his best man.
Yeah.
And he makes friends with Jason
You're
Segel.
a man whore, Peter.
Yeah.
He's really funny. The whole thing when he kisses the guy.
Oh, yeah.
When he kisses it. It's so good.
I did that thing where I watched it when I was 16 as well. Loved it. And then I watched it probably 2-3 more times the same year. And I do remember at the end of the year being like, this movie isn't funny anymore.
Oh, yeah,
but like,
I owned it on DVD.
I need to leave it. But yeah, good movie.
And then there's this line when he talks about like who shot your ad, and he was like M. Night Shyamalan, the director of The Village. And every single time to this day, I'll go M. Night Shyamalan in my head.
That was the time when Paul Rudd was like churning out quite big mainstream comedies, role models.
Yeah,
I Love You Man.
He's
Dinner for
becoming
Schmucks.
a leading man in that sense, wasn't it?
There was like a 3-4 year period when he maybe was like contractually obliged to a studio. Just
I Love You Man must have been one of his first ones where he was really fronting it, wasn't it?
2000. No, Role Models came before. This is 2009.
Role Models is funny too.
Yeah, Role Models
is really
Sean
good.
William Scott, right?
Yeah. Sean William
That's why I
Scott's
got into the
also
band
really
Kiss.
funny as well. Yeah,
That's why I got into the band
Kiss are
Love
brilliant.
Gun.
Yeah. And then they play Kiss all throughout.
Yeah.
It's great.
Anyway, that was your first sound.
And then Rush in, sorry.
And Rush in I Love You Man is a big part
yeah.
of it as well. And with the great Rashida Jones. Excellent. Well done. Guy, I'm just going to pull my screen in there so no one can see the clip I'm playing.
Oh, yeah.
Play along at home. James, are you ready for your next sound?
I am.
Guess the movie from the sound.
I got the bullets.
Yes.
You've never seen it.
I've never seen it.
Oh my.
So Ryan Gosling's voice.
Correct.
And it must be La La Land.
Correct.
I was like, is it Crazy Stupid Love? But yeah, it's
yes.
Yeah, it's La La Land. He must be explaining some sort of jazz.
It's before they got together.
Yes.
And from I haven't seen La La Land in a while, but from my memory, it's when they bumped into each other again. She's had an audition, it's gone well. And she says, yeah, it's kind of like Rebel Without a Cause. And he's doing Rebel Without a Cause. And he goes, oh, I got the bullets. And she says, yeah, you've never seen it. Oh my, it's playing at the Rialto tomorrow night. We should go. I'll take you.
What is Ryan Gosling's accent? Because it's quite distinct, isn't
He's
it?
Canadian.
Well, then he's doing an accent or something.
I don't know what he's doing.
Do you know what I mean?
I think he's just doing...
He's got that kind of New York almost.
I think he's just doing his accent, which is...
He always seems to have a twang.
He's from
to
Ontario,
him.
isn't
Yeah.
I just typed in Canada into Google. I don't know why I did that mindless searching while we're talking
He's got
about
the maple leaf like there's Canada for you. A lot of people will say that La La Land. I hear of a lot of people saying La La Land's my favourite film, or it's in their Letterboxd top 4, and it just didn't for me. It just didn't get that high for me. I did see it again within a year of seeing it for the first time, just to double check that it didn't quite work for me. I think it's a good film, but I'm like, it's not. It doesn't get me going. Personally.
I'm the same. It was probably one of the most hyped films
so
ever.
hyped, so hyped. Great poster, great talent,
Everything.
great director. Had all the things going for it.
And I saw it and I thought it was, and I wasn't sure, but like you.
Yeah.
And then I went back and saw it a week later with a mate. Felt kind of the same, and I've never revisited it. But 5-year-old James, that was now 8 years ago.
Because it has brilliant moments in it.
Absolutely.
And I think the ending is brilliant. And
Yes.
I think it's beautifully choreographed.
Yeah.
And there are so many individual parts of it, which I think, I'm like, that's a scene that works.
Yeah.
But as a film, it's just not quite.
Yeah,
it's
I'm the
just
same.
not quite.
Okay, James, this next clip, you know what? I'm going to give you the harder version. I think you'll still get it anyway,
Okay.
but why not? Because you're doing so well.
All right.
Are you ready for your next sound?
Let's do it.
Guess the movie. Guess the movie from the sound.
Your son has a very great talent. I don't think you are aware how great it is. That he is attempting to use that very talent against your will.
Can you turn it up just a bit?
That
Or is that
is-
Max?
Yes, I will do that for you.
I've not got it immediately. It's old.
Okay, I'm gonna punch you up. It's
Yeah,
already on full
please, thank
blast. One more time. That
you.
clip for you is as follows.
Your son has a very great talent. I don't think you are aware how great it is. That he is attempting to use that very talent against your will.
No, it's not coming to me. Go on.
Well, instead of giving you the answer, what I'll do is I'll play you the other clip, the easier
okay.
clip,
Yeah,
because
go on.
I love the sound of the earlier clip. So, and I think you should get this.
Okay.
So here's the easier clip, James.
All right.
Can you guess the movie from the sound?
I'm sorry to differ with you, sir. But you are the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker. I should know, sir. I've always been here.
And I tell you what, when I cut that clip afterwards, I thought, wow, I need to rewatch this movie again. That is
I've
really
seen
good.
it, but
Yeah,
I've not
okay.
seen this maybe for a long
But you've always
time.
been here, sir.
It's really familiar.
Do you want that again? One more time.
Yeah, I've probably not seen this in a really long time.
You've definitely seen very
I've
famous
seen it.
movie. Very famous
God,
movie.
that's really annoying.
But it's a great sounding clip, very menacing.
I'm sorry to differ with you, sir. But you are the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker. I should know, sir. I've always been here.
Oh, I've probably not seen this in such a long
Caretaker.
time.
Okay, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
It's The Shining.
Oh, again.
Yeah.
Shining.
know.
That's been on my one to rewatch for a
Same.
really long time.
So, turns 45 this year. Maybe we should do a 45th
We should
rewatch.
do actually. I would
45th.
like to rewatch it.
So-
it's nominated in the Horror Amy's movie nights coming
Ah.
up.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
as one to rewatch.
So again, as I was just saying, as you were thinking, when I watched that clip for that moment, I was like, Christ, this is great. This
Yeah.
is so menacing and atmospheric. And it's the scene, I don't know if you remember, where he's been having a drink at the bar and I think he spills something from himself. So he goes to the bathroom, he's being
Oh, of
cleaned
course
up.
it's the bar.
And it's like he's in the toilets now. And he's like, my name's Grady, sir. Delbert Grady. He's
Yeah.
like, you're Grady, right? You blew your brains out and your family too, didn't you?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm sorry to differ with you, sir, but I've never been here.
Really
And then he
strange.
goes on to say, are you aware that your son is trying to bring a person into this
Yeah.
situation? And John Nicholson's like, huh?
We did. I did a Shining clip for you, Soundgame, a while ago, and you also were like, "I know it, but I couldn't get
Yeah,
it."
you did the dog bit, didn't you? The dog costume bit. wasn't
Yeah, it was like she was running up the stairs
Oh,
and
yeah.
saw something through a door.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
The I will say one of my favourite
It
pieces.
sounds sorry. That film sounded older than it was.
Yes, because of the old timey.
I was thrown by it being like sort of a '60s film.
No, in 1980 it came
Yeah.
out. One of my favorite pieces of Shining lore, whatever, is The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, where they do the Shining episode. So funny, so good.
Yeah.
That's strange. I thought the blood usually gets off on the 3rd floor.
Yeah. Have you seen the behind the scenes of Kubrick and Nicholson working together?
Yeah.
This one where the camera's looking up
right
at him.
underneath.
And just seeing Nicholson roll between takes and work and trying new stuff, it's phenomenal. It's really, really cool.
So I watched The Shining for the first time. I'm sorry if I've told this story before, but I was obsessed with The Shining when I was like 10 years old, because this is when I was just getting into movies and I'd seen like 100 greatest movies of all time lists.
Sorry, can I just say, it's strange that your mum would cover your eyes for Jurassic Park 3, but also like The Shining you would like become obsessed with, and The Godfather.
You forget the role of my father in this. So like my dad would be watching the 100 greatest movies of all times shows, in which they would show clips from The Shining. Anyway, and they showed clips from The Shining, and I thought I was totally mesmerized by it, because it is mesmerizing. It is Kubrickian stuff. And I was demanding to watch it for ages. And I think I've told this before. Eventually, I wore my parents down, and they were like, okay, because I found it in the TV guide. I was like, it's on Friday. We should watch it. And they went, okay. And we watched it. And sure enough, it got to the bits with the girls where it's like, come play with us, Danny, which is only like 25 minutes in. And it scared the shit out of me. So I didn't watch that. And they were like, and literally, I remember my dad being like, yeah, thought so. Okay. So I didn't watch it again.
What about Old Woman in the bar?
Didn't get that far. Didn't get that far. And then I remember but I was still fascinated about it for years. And I would like read the Shining script online and look at bits. And then I'd watch The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. Anyway, eventually I watched it when I was like 19. In the daytime, because I was still a bit scared. And I really enjoyed it. But now, again, looking at that clip, the whole, now I'm double the age I was or whatever, I'm like, the aesthetic approach, all of it, I think I'd get so much more out of it. That beautiful film stock, the way it's framed.
Let's line it up for a little revisit.
Do that.
It's a good film.
Maybe for Halloween.
Yeah,
maybe.
why not?
Or sooner,
Why not?
August is quiet time.
We can do what we want.
It's our podcast. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening to this episode of Pulp Kitchen. As we've already mentioned, you can check out Double Take, which is our exclusive show we do on Patreon. But also, we should have some extra content coming on the feed this week. The New York Times has just released this poll of the 100 greatest movies of the 21st century, which people and readers can contribute to. So much discussed online. We're going to be talking about it in a little bit of extra content coming onto the feed this week. So listen out for that. We'll also be doing Brad Pitt's top movies. You sure? Yeah. Sorry. I think I thought you were
looking to me.
We'll also be doing Brad Pitt's best movies, because in honor of F1, we thought, why don't we go through his filmography, just cherry pick some of that. Another big piece of content coming your way.
Lots happening on Pulp Kitchen at the moment. New episodes every single Wednesday. We love you guys. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for listening.
We really do appreciate it, and we want to keep growing this show and making it bigger and better. So keep listening.
And please don't video us when we have our shirts off. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please don't do that. Thank you. Thank you to our producers, Finn and Dave. Have a great week, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.